in part 1, we talked about what GFA harmonization is and why PSF today looks higher. In part 2, I want to go one level deeper by comparing real projects, real layouts and real pricing outcomes. And more importantly, we'll look at this from both sides. As a seller holding a pre-harmonized unit and as a buyer choosing between old and new projects in the same locality. So for our first comparison, we are looking at Penrith versus Stirling residences. Both projects are located in the same close proximity at Queenstown MRT, which means location is largely comparable. Stirling Residences is a relatively newer development that TOP'd a few years ago, while Penrith is a new launch from last year that sold really well. This raises an important question. When a new post-harmonised project like Penrith sells so strongly, what does this mean for nearby developments like Stirling? Does it lift overall price expectations in the area, or does it change how buyers evaluate value when it compares the two different projects? And more importantly, if you're holding on to a Stirling today, how should you interpret Penrith's performance? So here we are looking at the 3-bedroom floor plans of both Penrith and Stirling, where Penrith is a post-harmonised development while Stirling is a pre-harmonised. Penrith's 3 bedrooms come at 786 square feet, excluding the aircon ledge. Based on recent transactions, prices are averaging around 2.1 to 2.2 million. While Stirling's 3-bedroom is pre-harmonised, so it's larger on paper at 893 square feet. Recent transactions for Stirling is around 2.1 to 2.3 million. And for higher floor units, buyers may actually pay more than Penrith for the similar 3-bedroom layout. When we compare the layouts, functionally, they are both quite similar. Both have the enclosed kitchen, also have proper living and dining spaces, also the windows in the kitchen, and also the 3 bedrooms that can all fit queen-size beds. They have 2 bathrooms, the master and also the common bathroom. So Penrith has a slightly longer walkway, but internally the usable space is comparable. The key difference lies in the balcony. So Stirling has a much larger balcony compared to Penrith. It extends from the living room all the way to the 3rd bedroom. So Penrith has a more efficient, compact balcony. If you flip this around and think purely as a buyer, both are proper 3-bedroom units. There are no major layout drawbacks in either and pricing is largely similar. The question then becomes, will you choose Penrith or will you choose Stirling? Now if you are a seller holding on to the 3-bedroom in Stirling, this comparison becomes very important. Penrith is already about 97% sold, which means there's very limited new inventory left. Fast forward about 4 years, when Penrith reaches TOP and enters the sub-sale market. Penrith will be a much newer development, while Stirling will be roughly 4 years older, and both will be competing directly for the same pool of buyers. At that point, buyers will inevitably ask, why should I pay the same price for an older unit when a newer post-harmonised option exists nearby? And this is the key implication of GFA harmonisation. For owners of older pre-harmonised layouts, this creates a very real comparison risk, which is why, for some owners, this could actually be a good opportunity to consider swapping into a newer post-harmonised development at a similar price point, or even upgrading to a larger unit using the capital gains accumulated over the years from the property. And this is exactly why we need to look beyond just size and start thinking about relative value, age, and buyer psychology in post-harmonisation market. Now let's move to another location, the Great Wall MRT area. This has been a particularly active micro market over the past few years, with several major developments coming on stream. On one side, we have Irwell Hill, which already TOP'd. More recently, we have River Green and Zion Grand, which launched last year and saw very strong take-up. What makes this comparison useful is that all 3 developments are located within the same Great Wall MRT vicinity, which means buyers are naturally comparing them against each other. So for this example, we'll compare their floor plans directly, focusing on layout efficiency, usable space, and how that translates into the pricing and buyer preference. So on this slide, we are comparing the 3-bedroom layouts across these 3 developments. On the left, we have a River Green, and in the middle, Zion Grand. And on the right is Irwell, which is the only pre-harmonised development among the 3. In terms of size, all 3 are broadly comparable, all in the 800 over square feet kind of range. So River Green is at 872 square feet, Zion Grand is 861, and then Irwell Hill is also 861 square feet, though it's pre-harmonised. So looking at the recent transactions, Zion Grand has already transacted around 2.5 to 2.7x million. River Green is slightly higher at the 2.7 to 2.8x million. It's important to note that River Green is the closest to MRT, which particularly explains the premium pricing. All three layouts have enclosed kitchen and generally functional bedroom sizes. For River Green and Zion Grand, all three bedrooms can comfortably fit a queen-size bed. The third bedroom is noticeably smaller for Zion Grand, where it can only fit a single bed. River Green and Zion Grand have kitchens with natural ventilation, while Orwell Hill's kitchen does not have windows, so you have no natural airflow. So River Green also has an additional bomb shelter/storage room, which Orwell Hill doesn't offer. So if you put yourself in the buyer's shoes and compare all three at similar price points, the question becomes very straightforward. Will you choose a newer post-harmonized layout with better, more efficient layout and more functional bedrooms? And in River Green's case, you even have an extra storage room? Or would you choose an older pre-harmonized development with more layout compromises? This explains very clearly why River Green and Zion Grand sold extremely well during their launches. Now let's flip this around. If you're currently holding on to a unit at Orwell Hill, the question becomes critical. Within the same vicinity, you already have River Green and Zion Grand Promenade Peak as well, and very soon another new launch, River Modern, will be also harmonized and launching soon. A few years down the road, when these newer projects enter the sub-sale market, Orwell Hill will be significantly older, price points will be very similar, and buyers will be comparing layouts side by side. At that point, does the older layout still justify the same pricing? This is why for some owners, it could be an opportunity for you to exit the current pre-harmonized unit and swap it to a newer post-harmonized development at a similar price, or even upgrade using the capital gains you have accumulated over the years. Because once the newer pre-harmonized projects fully enter the resale market, competition will only intensify. Next, let's look at District 15, where we have a very clear and direct comparison. These two developments are side by side in the same locality, Tembusu Grand and Emerald of Katong, which removes the location as a variable entirely. On one hand, we have Tembusu Grand, which has recently collected keys and is a pre-harmonized development. And then we have Emerald of Katong, which is post-harmonized, which launched about 2 years ago. On this slide, we are focusing purely on layout comparison. First, we have Emerald of Katong's 4+ study layout, which is post-harmonized, and that is at 1152 square feet, and recently transacted about 2.7 to 2.8 million. So on paper, 1152 square feet may look very compact, but once you study the floor plan, you'll notice all 4 bedrooms are functional and can minimally fit a queen bed. And you still get an additional study room, a wet and dry kitchen configuration, and also a dedicated yard area. Even the master bedroom is very spacious. You can comfortably have a walk-in wardrobe similar to what we can see in Tembusu Grand's layout. So now let's compare this with Tembusu Grand's 4-bedroom, which is pre-harmonized. The size is significantly larger at 1432 square feet. However, when we look at the pricing, the average transacted there recently is about 3.2 to 3.5 over million, which is 4 to 800k more than what you can get at EOK. So if you put yourself in the buyer's shoes, the question becomes very straightforward. Will you choose a newer post-harmonized 4+ study layout with highly efficient space planning and 4 to 800k lower entry price, or would you choose an older pre-harmonized 4-bedroom layout with 1 less study and at a significantly higher quantum? To add on, let's also pull out Tembusu Grand's 3+ study layout, which is at 1173 square feet. The size is comparable to the post-harmonized 4+ study at EOK. Recent transactions for this unit type went around 2.5 to even 2.7 over million. Now here's where the comparison becomes very clear. At around the same 2.7 million price point, a buyer could easily purchase an EOK 4+ study in a newer development with 1 additional bedroom and also a more efficient and post-harmonized layout. So from a buyer's perspective, the question is very straightforward. If you can get a newer project just next door, 1 extra bedroom and no additional increment in terms of your cost, would you choose that over an older development? Now let's flip this around again. If you're currently holding a unit at Tembusu Grand and thinking, my property is still new, I can afford to hold it for long-term value, then we need to think twice because you now have a direct competitor just next door, newer, more efficient, and also better layouts, and at a lower or similar price quantum. In earlier examples, we were talking mostly about owners already in the resale market. But in this case, many Tembusu Grand owners are still within their seller stamp duty period and have not even entered the sub-sale market, which means the impact of harmonized developments is not just a resale issue, it also affects current sub-sale owners. This is why it's important to think ahead even before your SSD expires. What you decide today will directly affect how easy it is for you to exit in the future, how competitive your pricing will be, and whether buyers see your unit as a GFA harmonization good value. GFA harmonization doesn't just change how buyers buy, it changes how owners need to plan their exits. And this brings us to the final comparison where we'll look at when older pre-harmonized developments can still hold their ground. So for the final example, let's look at a slightly different scenario. Here we have Park Esta, which is located beside Eunos MRT. This is an older development that has TOP'd a few years ago. We are comparing this against the upcoming Bedok Rise plot, which is located just beside Tanah Merah MRT. So both developments are along the same MRT line, and in terms of proximity to MRT station, they are fairly comparable. However, the key difference here is centrality. Park Esta is significantly closer to city compared to Bedok Rise. If we look at the land bid for Bedok Rise, the estimated break-even cost is around 2,449 PSF per plot ratio. Assuming a reasonable developer margin of about 15%, they could potentially be looking at a launch price of around 2,816 PSF. Okay, so we compare the 3-bedroom layouts of both Park Esta and also the upcoming Bedok Rise. As of now, we don't have the floor plans for Bedok Rise, so we just use Pasir Ris 8's 3-bedroom floor plan to compare because they are the same developer. So the 3-bedroom layout here for Park Esta is at 904 square feet, and the transacted price recently is around 2.7 to 2.8 million. So if you look at the floor plans, it's actually a very functional layout. You have 3 proper bedrooms and also good natural ventilation, an enclosable kitchen with window, and also a practical overall configuration. A very livable home. We don't have the floor plan for Bedok Rise yet, but since Bedok Rise will be developed by All Green, the same developer as Pasir Ris 8, we can use Pasir Ris 8 as a reasonable reference point. So Pasir Ris 8 is a pre-harmonized development, and the 3-bedroom layout we are referencing is the 1066 square feet layout. However, that size includes a relatively large balcony that extends into the bedroom, and also the aircon ledgers are also included in the floor plan. If we adjust this to a post-harmonized framework, assuming a smaller balcony and the aircon ledgers are excluded, a conservative estimate of about 10% reduction in usable area, that brings us to about 958 square feet. Earlier, we estimated Bedok Rise potential launch PSF is around 2,800. So if we use that to do the math, the price works out to be around 2.7 plus million. At that level, Bedok Rise would likely set a record price for 3-bedroom units in Tanah Merah, especially considering nearby developments are older. Now this is where the comparison becomes interesting. At a similar 2.7 to 2.8 million price point, a buyer could choose a brand new post-harmonized Bedok Rise or an existing Park Esta, which is closer to city and just beside the MRT, and still offers a very functional layout. In this case, location and centrality start to outweigh age and harmonization. So unlike our earlier examples, harmonization alone does not automatically disadvantage Park Esta. Because there is no direct newer competition within the immediate vicinity, strong MRT adjacency, and also better central positioning. If you are currently holding a unit like this at Park Esta, it is still generally reasonable to continue holding, and the value would likely remain relatively resilient. And this is really the key message of this video. GFA harmonization changes how buyers compare, but it does not affect every development in the same way. The impact depends on the location, your buyer profile, nearby competition, and also the relative pricing. Every development has a different story. If you're deciding whether to hold or sell or swap, it's important not to rely on the floor plans or PSF alone. If you'd like a deeper personalized analysis based on your current property and goals, I'm happy to walk you through in a one-on-one consultation. This way, you can actually make a decision that's grounded in your specific situation, not just general market trends. To conclude, what does this mean for both buyers who are looking out there and also existing pre-harmonized homeowners? So for buyers, firstly, it's important to look just beyond the size on paper. Bigger square feet doesn't always mean better livability. Secondly, it's important to compare the total price, not just the PSF alone. Many post-harmonized units transact at similar or even lower quantum despite higher PSF. Thirdly, efficiency matters more today. Functional bedrooms, proper kitchens, storage, and layout flow often matter more than just the size. And lastly, newer does not always mean better. Harmonization helps, but other attributes like supply in the area, location and centrality of the location, as well as functionality of layouts still matter. So for pre-harmonized homeowners, firstly, competition is now closer and clearer. Newer post-harmonized launches nearby directly impact how buyers benchmark your unit. Secondly, age and layout will be compared together. Buyers no longer compare just price, they also will compare the efficiency, the age, and also the functionality side by side. Thirdly, not all older projects are disadvantaged. Strong location, MRT, adjacency, and also the lack of direct competition can still support your value. And lastly, timing matters. If new harmonized projects haven't entered the resale or subsale market yet, planning early gives you more flexibility. So to conclude, GFA harmonization changes buyer comparison behavior, but it doesn't impact every development in the same way. Whether to hold, to sell or swap, it really depends on your project, your location, and also your competition. Not just whether the layout is pre or post harmonized. Thank you for watching again. See you in the next video.